Okay, so today we're gonna dive into some really fascinating stuff, I think. We're talking forensic science, and you know how it's helped solve some true crime mysteries that really seemed impossible to crack.
Yeah, definitely a lot of people are interested in that.
For sure. So, you sent over this article, The Science That Solves,
But
and
yeah,
it really gets into, how crucial science is in, finding the truth and getting justice.
absolutely. And what really gets me is this idea that, science is almost like this silent detective, right?
Right.
Just quietly uncovering evidence that you can't argue with.
Yeah, it's not always, those dramatic moments in court, right?
Exactly. And
Sometimes it's, a tiny bit of data or evidence that just changes
it
everything.
really blows the case wide open, yeah.
And this isn't, brand new either.
Oh, no, not at all.
The article mentions this case in Argentina back in 1892,
Oh, wow.
where they used fingerprints for the first time.
Really?
Yeah, so that was like the beginning of, using evidence that's like physically there.
Yeah. Evidence-based justice. Yeah.
Exactly, a total game changer in how we think about proving someone's guilty or innocent,
I mean, before that, it was basically all eyewitness accounts and circumstantial stuff.
which we know can be pretty shaky.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But fingerprints, those are unique.
Yeah, you can't argue with that.
And then, almost 100 years later,
Let me guess, DNA.
you got it, the DNA revolution
Right.
totally changed the game again.
It really did.
The article talks about the Colin Pitchfork case in the UK in 1986.
Okay.
First time someone was convicted based on DNA
Like
evidence.
how this have blown everyone's minds.
I can't even imagine what that was like for investigators and just people in general.
It's like suddenly you have this incredible accuracy in pinpointing someone.
Yeah, no more guessing games.
And the thing is, it didn't stop there.
Oh, yeah.
From that moment on, it's just been this explosion of advancements.
Like that article mentions all these new areas beyond fingerprints and DNA,
So many new tools.
like digital forensics.
Oh, yeah. Crucial these days.
I mean, our whole lives are online now.
Emails, social media, you name it.
It's all there.
And digital forensics basically helps investigators piece it all together.
You can see what someone deleted, what websites they visited.
It's amazing what they can uncover.
It's like a whole other level of clues.
Definitely adds a whole other dimension to investigations.
And then there's this one that I always find so interesting.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Forensic entomology.
Entomology, so like bugs, right?
Exactly. So you can tell how long someone's been dead by studying the insects on the body.
No way, seriously.
Yeah, it's wild, right?
That's like straight out of a crime show.
But it's real science.
So like the bugs tell the story.
It makes you think about, the tiniest details at a crime scene.
Like they all have a purpose, a clue.
Exactly. And it's all about, how predictable insects are.
You mean like how they develop and stuff?
Right, based on the environment and everything.
So you can actually create a timeline.
Pretty accurate one, too.
Wow, that's amazing.
Oh, and it gets even weirder.
Okay, lay it on me.
They can use isotopes in, like, hair and teeth to figure out where someone's been.
Wait, isotopes in hair and teeth?
Yeah, it's like your body carries a map of your travels.
Okay, that is wild. How does that even work?
So different places have, like, their own chemical signature.
In the water and soil.
Right, and when you eat and drink, you absorb those elements.
And they end up in your hair and teeth.
Yeah, so by looking at the ratios of these isotopes...
Isotopes are like variations of an element, right?
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
Scientists can basically trace where someone's lived.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So if you have a missing person,
Yeah, you could potentially track their movements.
wow, that's incredible.
So it's not just, the big breakthroughs. It's these really specific techniques that are changing the game.
So many new possibilities.
And then you've got these amazing people who've really shaped the field.
Oh yeah, the pioneers?
The article talks about Dr. Henry Lee.
Oh yeah, I know that name.
If you're into true crime, you definitely know who he is.
He was involved in some huge cases, right?
Oh, yeah, the O.J. Simpson trial, the John Benet Ramsey case.
I remember those.
What's really impressive about him is just how thorough he is at crime scenes.
So like really detail-oriented,
Yeah, he could find clues where no one else could.
like a scientific Sherlock Holmes.
And he was always coming up with new ways to analyze evidence.
Thinking outside the box.
Exactly, which is so important in science.
You got to keep pushing the boundaries.
Especially in forensics, which is constantly evolving.
It's like a never-ending puzzle.
And then there's Dr. Michael Baden.
Okay, another big name.
He's a forensic pathologist.
So he's the one who actually examines the bodies.
Right. Figures out how and why they died.
That's got to be tough.
He's worked on tons of high-profile cases.
Really contributing to our understanding of death.
It's like he brings this deep medical knowledge to the world of crime solving.
That's so valuable.
So all these advancements, these brilliant minds,
Yeah, they lead to some pretty mind-blowing moments.
like cases you thought would never be solved.
Yeah, where science just comes in and cracks it wide open.
Yeah. The Golden State Killer case is a perfect example.
Oh yeah, that was huge.
This guy, Joseph James D'Angelo,
I remember that name.
they finally caught him in 2018 after decades.
Decades, wow.
And you know what's crazy? It wasn't a direct DNA match.
It wasn't?
Nope, it was familial DNA analysis.
Okay, I've heard of that. But how does it work?
So basically, they took the DNA from the crime scenes
Okay.
and uploaded it to these public genealogy databases.
The ones people use to trace their ancestry.
Right, so they found some distant relatives of the killer,
Wow.
and then they built out these huge family trees,
Trying to connect the dots.
and eventually they narrowed it down to D'Angelo.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So he gets caught because of a distant relative's DNA test.
It's wild.
It shows how connected we all are.
Even in the world of crime solving.
It's all about those connections.
And on top of all that, you've got these just bizarre forensic facts.
Okay, I love those. Give me some examples.
Did you know the veins in your hands are unique?
Really, like fingerprints?
Yeah, another way to identify someone.
Wow, what will they think of next?
And then there's all this stuff entomologists can figure out from insects.
We talked about time of death, but there's more.
Oh, yeah, way more.
Like what?
They can tell if a body's been moved
No, wait.
based on the bugs that are there.
Seriously.
And they can even tell if someone was poisoned or had drugs in their system.
That's crazy. It's like the insects are little detectives.
They really are.
It's like every little thing in a crime scene matters.
It all tells a story.
So these forensic breakthroughs have totally changed how we solve crimes.
It's not just about getting a conviction.
It's about understanding what really
It's
happened,
exactly, and getting justice for the victims.
especially in those cases that seemed hopeless.
Science can uncover the truth no matter how hidden it is.
It's amazing what we can do now compared to even a few decades ago.
It's like we have this new level of objectivity and accuracy.
Evidence speaks for itself.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into forensic science,
A lot to think about.
it's clear that it's had a huge impact.
Cold cases being solved, families getting closure,
It's really inspiring.
and it makes you wonder what's next.
What other crazy breakthroughs are coming?
What will they be able to do in the future that we can't even imagine now?
Will they be able to analyze evidence in ways that seem like magic to us?
And could that lead to overturning convictions based on new information?
It's a pretty intense thought, right?
Definitely makes you think about the power of science and how much we still don't know.
It's like the future of justice is constantly being rewritten.
And it's all thanks to these amazing scientific discoveries.
It's pretty incredible when you think about it.
It really is.
So that's our deep dive into forensic science for today.
Thanks for having me.
And be sure to join us next time for another fascinating exploration.
Looking forward to it.
Until then, stay curious and keep asking questions.
Always good advice.